Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode here of New Album Spotlight, the show I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock or related genres that I'm really excited about, that I want to tell you guys about so that you can check it out and enjoy this music as well, proving that prog is still alive and flourishing in today's age. Isn't just a dead genre that died at the tail end of the 70s, but there's so much great progressive music coming out now that I love to highlight and showcase to you guys. And I have more of a heavier prog album here. Perhaps you could consider it progressive metal, in fact. This is the new album by Avkrust, and it's called Waving at the Sky. This is heavy prog from Norway. This is their second release. They released their debut record in 2023, about 2 years ago, called The Approbation, and I reviewed it on this channel. Really loved the record. They definitely have a recognizable sound. They have influences that you can clearly hear from Opeth and certainly Porcupine Tree, anything within the Steven Wilson family. I definitely hear those influences on these records. And I think some reviewers even said that maybe they stayed a little bit too close to their influences on that first debut record. So a big question mark coming into the second record, I think, for a lot of listeners is, will they strike out more on their own identity, or will they continue to rely upon their influences similar to how they did on the first album? And at the outset, I'll say I'm not too bothered by artists kind of leaning heavily on their influences. I kind of like the homages, and of course, if it's bands that I love, it brings me into the fold and gives me somewhat of a reference point to get me excited about the band and their sound. And then once I'm hooked in because of how they sound similar to some of my favorite artists, then I can pick out the nuances of their specific sound and how they kind of bring their own personality into it. And I do believe that Waving at the Sky succeeds in bringing a bit of their own personal stamp into the music a bit more, even though you still hear those influences. They're still playing within the same sandbox that they played on in their debut. So don't expect a wildly different sound or something crazy experimental. This is still their style in that Porcupine Tree, Opeth style vein. But I think they infuse a bit more of their own personality. And they even say in their press release that the attempt here for this new album was to go in a bit more of an original direction, to kind of have some evolution within the band and sound maybe a bit more mature sounding than they did on their debut, but definitely has that same signature style and sound that they're known for. Because you got to understand that when a band debuts and starts to amass a following, the followers want to hear albums in that similar sound and style. Like, I love a band with a signature sound that's recognizable and that hooks me in immediately. And it's, one of my favorite artists is Neil Morse, which a lot of people complain that he kind of sounds similar from album to album, that he has a very predictable structure and stays within a similar wheelhouse, and all of his lyrical themes and content are all revolved around the same subject matter, which is all fair criticisms. But I do feel beyond all that, he does slight experimentations. He does things that are off the beaten path every so often to try to explore in his own musical wheelhouse, and I think that's great. That's what I look for. Someone who has a signature style that's comforting and that sticks with you, but then they're willing to kind of play within their little sandbox. And I think Avkrust, you can say the same thing about. And so I love this new record. I think it takes what they did on the debut and kind of takes it even a step further. They have a very dark, kind of melancholy type sound to them. There's a lot of dark topics that are being discussed and explored on this album, very dark themes. The concept of this record, it's kind of a continuation of the previous record, maybe a prequel of sorts, I suppose, to The Approbation. The lonely man in the cabin who's going insane, and The Approbation is one of the characters of this album, referred to as a stepdad. And the story is about these two different families that are neighboring families, and about the abuse that they bring to their children, and not just their own children, but also to the neighboring family's children. And apparently it was inspired by something in the news in Norway, and you get bits of like almost news snippets and like stuff from the eventual trial of this situation, and it gets very dark and very intense and heavy, as you would expect with such dark themes of abuse and, you know, the mental anguish that these people in the story are really going through and the dark actions that they're performing. That's going to bring some pretty heavy, intense music, and I think that bears itself out on these tracks. But there's also some hidden beauty, and I think this is kind of the magic trick that both Opeth and Steven Wilson, honestly, are able to pull off, because they're very dark artists. You know, their lyrics are very chilling and, you know, almost macabre in the way that they bring these topics about. I mean, Porcupine Tree's In Absentia is about serial killers, but there's this hidden like beauty within the music that makes it really compelling. It's these dark, disturbing topics, but done in this beautiful melodic fashion. And Opeth is genius for how they kind of balance the light and shade, where they're able to have these dark, heavy, intense, brutal sections, but then they're complemented by these folky acoustic parts that bring a lightness and bring this kind of different flavor, and it's a perfect juxtaposition that really gives you a lot of cool variety as you listen through the record. And I think this brings a lot of that same feeling to it. As you go through the track list, you feel that there's some heavy, intense sections, definitely inspired by Opeth. There's even some moments of growling vocals, but then it's brightened up by these more acoustic sections and these more beautiful melodic vocals and harmonies and building the mellotrons and all of this beautiful music that accompanies some of these sections. So it's a great balance and becomes a really great feast for your ears. And I love the length of the record. It's 45 minutes long, and just the right punch to get you excited but not overstay its welcome and make you want to press the repeat button and listen all over again. It starts off with Proceeding, which gives you some hard-hitting musical stabs and some mellotron before we get some killer drum and bass grooves and repeating guitar. Some beautiful moments where things brighten up with acoustic guitar and keys in a Steven Wilson-esque style, but then you get some heavier, more Opeth-inspired moments with some spoken word sections. And it's just overall a great instrumental overture to kind of get you into Avkrust's musical framework, their kind of wheelhouse that they work within. So a fantastic short 3-minute track leading into The Trauma, which was their second single. Very quick-paced, heavy sections here, built around some well-constructed riffs, taking cues from Opeth, certainly. Definitely really leans into this powerful, epic, kind of proggy opening. 2 minutes of instrumental fireworks before they get into these sort of mournful vocals. There's some cool switch-ups between a heavier, electrifying riff-led section and more acoustic-focused dark folk, once again bringing to mind Opeth. And I love the pain lyrical style, full of emotion, and they bring in those kind of guttural, deep growls as well. And I'm not a big fan of growling. That's well documented on this channel, but I like how Avkrust does it because it's very limited. It's only in certain sections, and it's only to really convey the deep, dark emotions that they're trying to convey. So it makes sense within the music. When it's just beating you over the head and every single track is just massive growls that never let up, like, it loses its impact for me. So I think it's really tastefully done here. So if you're kind of averse to growling vocals, I'm sure that could be something that will turn you off a little bit from this album, but I wouldn't let it turn you off if you're a big Porcupine Tree fan and a fan of maybe some of the lighter moments of Opeth. There's a lot to love here, and the growling is somewhat minimal throughout the record. But when it's there, it's really impactful and really well done. Families Are Forever is the third track on the record. A little bit of a longer track, almost 8 minutes in length. A bit more thoughtful and gentle after two very hard-hitting tracks, but keeps that kind of dark, moody tinge that the whole record has. Some opening mellotrons before we settle into more acoustic flavor with great shuffling drum work and vocals. I love the vocals from Simon throughout the record. He's the main vocalist. Basically, the album is composed by Simon Bergseth, who does a lot of guitar and bass and vocals on the record, and Martin Utby, who does the drumming and a lot of synth work as well. So they kind of compose the core of the record, but they have a few other musicians in their lineup. adding some bass and guitar and keys. Oystein Adland on bass and keys, Edvardsheim on guitars, and Avergarn on keys. So a great little lineup, and really fantastic how they're able to bring their flavor into this Families Are Forever track. There's an Opethian twist throughout it with more growling vocals, and then achingly beautiful melodies that have a Steven Wilson style edge, beautiful melodic sound to melancholy and dark subject matters. Love the keyboard solo halfway through, servicing the song, but not too much to show off here. Truly beautiful, capped off by a great soaring guitar solo. So a great track on the record. Moving into Conflating Memories, which has some really interesting, dark, twisted guitar figures, clicking drums, and elongated vocal melodies. Love some of the mellotron accents here. There's a strange kind of jazzy flute interlude, some lush building sections, and some of the most beautiful work on the entire album comes out as the guitar rings out with chiming acoustic guitars and meaty riffs, very lush and expertly arranged in this track, and a killer keyboard solo comes out of that fray before we return to those beautiful twisted melodies from the opening. So just a great 7-minute track that gives you all of the things that you want from the band, and some really excellent playing and lush arrangements, and it just comes off fantastically well. The Malevolent is track number 5, featuring Ross Jennings of Haken fame on the vocals, and this is a fun little respite. It's the shortest track. It's one of the more catchier vocal tracks as well. Starts with some flying dark prog metal with cool riffs, but I love the chorus and the catchier vocals that come from Ross Jennings, and I think it provides a nice breather and break between these really dense and dark tracks that surround it. Ghosts of Yesteryear has some killer riffs, once again very dense and heavy, has a cool rocking feel and meaty bass lines. Some stunning acoustic guitar, mellotron, and great vocals as well. This just has it all. It's another track that just has all of their soundscapes all bundled into one great listen. Some bluesy guitar playing, soulful feel. Definitely has that Steven Wilson kind of vibe to it as well. And I love how it juxtaposes those heavy and acoustic sections to create a really great sprawling work. And then we get into the big epic that closes the record, the title track, Waving at the Sky, which starts a bit more ethereal and acoustic and poignant with thoughtful vocals, but it builds in intensity as it goes along. Things shift and morph between these different feels. There's a cool atmospheric kind of soundscape section that layers and builds before we're met with a meaty bass line and pounding drum work. There's a lot of cool instrumental stuff going on in this mix, some great synths, some great layers and added guitar crunch, some tricky drum work, some dark organ, and we add in those growling vocals as well. And it all just builds to these kind of gorgeous heights as it ends on a somewhat hopeful note. After all of this dark, moody, melancholy flavors throughout the record, it ends with this really gorgeous finale that surrounds you and envelops you in this somewhat bright light amidst the dark waters that you've had to wade throughout the record proper. So, a fantastic record. I really love it. I think it's a slight step up from their debut, but it's not worlds removed from how their debut sounded also. It's in the same wheelhouse. It's definitely occupying the same space and has the same influences, but I think this one just has a little bit more of a bite and an edge to it, a little more lush in the arrangements, a little bit more intricate and complex. And it just really strikes me as an excellent release this year. Definitely a contender for one of my favorites, especially in the heavier prog metal direction this year. So definitely a strong stamp of approval. Hopefully you guys will check this one out. It's well worth your time if you're interested. Don't be too scared off by the growling sections. I think it's very sparse and services the songs, but mostly there's very melodic singing and some wonderful, beautiful work on all instrumentation here. So please check it out, and please let me know in the comments what you think about it if you've heard it, and if you're excited about the release, what you thought about the debut record and your anticipation for this one. So thank you guys so much. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this album comes out this upcoming Friday on June 13th. And it should be an excellent release, one to really get excited for. So thank you guys so much. Please join me on future reviews. I try to do a review once about every week to let you know about the greatest and brightest in the progressive rock scene. and I really appreciate all your support. Bye, everybody. Enjoy the music.